Welcome to another round of the Salty Takeaways and Bitter Ends, probably some of both this time, as we talk about the Atlanta United 2-2 draw with Nashville. It is Jarrett, it is Nick, and it is John. And Jarrett, since you were listening to the post-match comments of head coach Gabriel Heinze, Eric Lopez, and George Bello, what were some of your big takeaways?
This game feels like a loss for everybody. Is what it is. There are going to be games like that, but it's one that feels like a loss, even though it's a draw. You give up two late goals, where things just kind of get sideways on you, and you miss some opportunities to put the game away. And it's one of those that I don't think you can take away from it, other than Nashville is a very good team. This is not the Nashville of last year that would counter you. Like, they can actually create without punching 11 bodies forward. They're a talented team, and that's what happens when you don't put away a talented team and you give them an inch. And Atlanta wasn't perfect on the defensive side. Second ball kind of falls weird to Mukhtar. He puts it away, doesn't make those mistakes. And, you don't finish the game off. These kinds of things can happen against good teams. It's been a rough go in terms of, like, facing tough teams and then facing teams on the road for Atlanta. They get a little bit of a break now, but, this is what happens when you don't finish the drill, to use the analogy from every football coach in Middle Georgia.
There you go. Nick, you were amongst the 40,748. What were some of your takeaways from watching that 90 minutes?
I would say around the 75th minute, you started to see sort of the wheels start to come a little loose. The passes around then started to seem to be a little off kilter, a yard or so off target. Then it was a yard and a half off target. It just seemed that the energy completely changed. And when Nashville puts the first goal in, I can't speak for Jarrett or anyone else, but it just felt to me like they got another one in them. And you could just see that their entire body language changed, their energy changed, and Atlanta's stayed consistent. And you cannot have that late in the game. 80 minutes in the game, that's plenty of time for anyone to put two on the board. And Nashville had that time. And if when we were leaving the stadium, the Nashville fans were going nuts. They were yelling and screaming and waving flags, and the Atlanta fans sort of had their heads hung low. But, the one thing about this game is that the offense was clicking. It was certainly more of an aggressive attack. There was more of that incisive passing that we've been talking about the past couple of weeks. I know that I've been looking for the vertical passing, the diagonal incisive passes. They were there. The finishing was largely there. To Jarrett's point, you had a couple of opportunities to even expand the lead even more. But, it's one of those games you really want back. But I'm glad that this game happened at this point in the season and not in like September, October. If we're going to have a stupid game like that, let's get it out of our system now. But no one in that locker room should be thrilled, especially on that back line with the closing moments of this game. And I don't expect that anyone is. I'm thrilled that the offense was clicking. There have been some people who've said, oh, yeah, the offense is clicking, but we're going into an international break. I think that's fine, because it gives you a lot of game tape to be able to go over and say, hey, look, this is what worked. Let's continue to practice, these moments and building in this particular manner. The back line, we've said it for the past couple of weeks. They've had moments where they sort of went to sleep and they were able to survive those moments. They didn't survive them this week. So it's another thing that you have to game tape, diagram, and then work out in the international break. So I'm glad the international break's here. It's undoubtedly a draw that feels like a loss.
Jarrett, since Nick went into the back line a little bit, let me kind of take a member of the back line and talk about an aspect of his game that we have seen grow in a very short period of time, and it goes back to that first goal on the board, and it started with yet another pass that was dropped on a dime and basically gave a nickel change to Marcelino Moreno, and it came from Miles Robinson.
Miles Robinson is basically the Damian Lillard of MLS at this point, because every time they don't pick him for something to do with the national team and he gets snubbed, he just comes out and just starts dropping dimes. Like, Dame gets left off the All-Star team and goes out and drops 50 points 3 games in a row. Miles Leonard gets left off the national team And he just is like, okay, I guess I got to keep dropping these dimes and show you what you're missing, because it was beautiful. Miles was really good. I think he was the second highest rated player on the team, according to Who Scored. We'll take that for what it is. But behind Moreno, by the way. So haters going to hate. He played a really good game. He and Anton Walks are really sneaky good, I feel like. And it shouldn't be sneaky good. Maybe the pairing you can call sneaky good, but Miles himself is not. Miles is just straight good. But he and Walks together have been really solid as a back pair there. And then when Sosa drops back, it gets really fun. They've been absolutely really good. And that's been such a good grab by whoever pulled the strings on that to bring Anton Walks back into the fold. The guy who started out as a right back when he was here in his first run. And, they said, hey, come on back if it's not working in England. And I don't know what his long-term plans are. Dude can play in MLS for as long as he wants, though, because he's a damn good center back.
As long as that budget number is correct and we don't do any Miami cooking. I mean, this is a place where
he's not going to go to Miami. I don't think they can afford him. I don't think they can afford him. They can't afford you, Nick.
No, they could not. No. I'm sorry. I'm way too valuable. It would cost at least a couple Philly cheesesteaks and a new Bialetti espresso maker, and they can't afford that at the moment. So no. But look, I think you nailed it with Robinson's distribution from the back. I mean, that's something where it's been improving year by year, his distribution, and now he has that confidence where the ball arrives at his feet and he looks up and he spots the space that he wants player X to go, and he just slots the ball right there. I mean, it's absolutely amazing to watch. I do wish as a collective unit, though, that they would continue to work to clean some things up, because I think that's still a part of it. But the distribution, if I have to be happy about something, I'm thrilled at the distribution. And I think that's something where you can clean up defensive errors. You can clean up spaces that are left open. You can clean up when you close down on someone. But it takes a heck of a lot longer to get that distribution side of your game down. And so we have that clicking. You're always going to be dangerous when you can distribute from the back like that.
And also, Jarrett, since we discussed the end of the first goal, what about the play of folks like Marcelino Moreno, Eric Lopez, that put the 2 goals on the board for Atlanta United to give them the 2-goal lead? When you looked at Marcelino and you looked at Eric Lopez, what were some of your thoughts today?
Marcelino Moreno scored what may be the second slowest goal in MLS history. Pulls that ball down really nicely. Abused Romney, and that wasn't the first. It wasn't the last time. I think it was the first time he'd been abused. Joseph twisted Romney into granite knots on that chance Atlanta had that Willis made a fantastic save on in the first half. But twist him around and then just kind of. You won't call it passing it into the net. Something that more guys should do. You don't have to break the net, but you can place it, and just kind of hits it with the top, hits it with his cleats, and just places in the net very nicely. It's very well done. As far as the second goal goes, a great ball from Miles, great run into the midfield, because he is basically an elk. He's about the size of an adult elk. He moves like one too, and cuts through the midfield, plays it out to Bello, who had a very strong game. Cutting in, cutting out, however he needed to be, saw the very long diagonal run from Eric Lopez to the front post. We talked to Lopez about it afterward, and he said it was just he scored it with his heel, basically. He said it was just a great cross from Bello, and it was that right height where he could kind of get his heel up on it, and just turned it back. And I think it was one of those where he hit it, and he looked back to make sure it was going in, but it was a fantastic build-up, fantastic goal, and you were flying high at that point, and you should be feeling good, because if you want to go by shots and shots on goal, I think Atlanta had 12 shots at one point, had like 8 shots on goal. I mean, this is a good Nashville team, and I get it. You're at home, and they're on the road. You should be on top at home, but you still put a fair number of shots and shots on goal on a good Nashville team. It is progress, and whether you want to hear it or not, man, I mean, you got to find progress, and I think the attack is coming together now. You're still going to have these moments of defense, especially with Heinze, because, again, remember what school he came from. He came from the school of, hey, we're up 2-0 in the 70th minute. What are we going to change? Nothing. We're going to be us.
Right. And that's it. That's exactly what it is. What we're going to keep doing, we're going to keep the pedal down. But part of keeping the pedal down, that does not mean that defensive responsibilities go away. And I'm not saying that anyone on that field said, oh, well, toss it all. We're up by 2. But it just felt like that that the air went out a little bit. And Nashville sensed it, seized it, put in one energy change for them. They went into a higher gear, and Atlanta was just kind of there. And I don't want to be a negative Nelly, and I know that I get sometimes called sunshine pumper, but you have to be thrilled, like you said, Jarrett, that you got the offense clicking. Because the past couple of weeks, we've said the offense is going to come together. The offense is going to come together. Well, the offense came together. And so over the break, they're going to work on the defensive side of it. And then, they're going to get that solved. But it is just a sour taste in the mouth after being up 2, and especially getting that first goal so early. It is so tough to have those games where that happens.
And Nick, to the point that Jarrett was bringing up with Eric Lopez, the biggest reminder here about Eric Lopez is that, if I'm not mistaken, he's still under 24 matches played in a first team environment. And this is across multiple competitions. So this is someone who is still learning the game, and now he's learning the game in an entirely different country in a Gabriel Heinze system. And so we're seeing these progressions. We were talking about the progression with Miles. We were talking about what we've seen progression-wise with Marcelino Moreno. We're seeing another one of those building blocks where Eric Lopez is concerned today.
Yeah, those are the players who you want, on your team. Those ones who are where the key word is potential. And when you have potential and ability and youth is on your side, that's nothing but aces for your team. The last thing you want is a player who's older, and the magic word is recapture, right? You don't want a player coming in who's going to recapture the glory. That doesn't really work well. You might as well be setting money on fire. But whenever you have a player who can come in and that magic word potential is attached to them, and they start delivering, and that the ceiling is pretty darn high based on what you've seen that they can do. Darren Eales and the front office start seeing dollar signs as well, because as a player who you let develop for a couple of years, you let him cook up, and then you sell him for a pretty penny. And that also that next magic P word plus Valenza gets tossed around as well. So thrilled with what you saw to him. Love what I saw to Mulroney early on. That kid was cooking as well. So we cannot leave his name out, because I feel like a lot of times he kind of gets left on the not mentioned list. But Mulroney was cooking. And to see him come out, get the start, and put some wheels out, that was a lot of fun to see. Because you could tell the kid's heart's in it. He understands his roles and responsibilities, and that's another guy. You let him cook for a couple of years, man. You even if you move him within MLS, you're still going to be able to get a pretty penny out of the deal, I think.
All right, Jarrett, next guy up on the list that I wanted to talk about with continued growth here is Santiago Sosa, and what we saw from Santi in the middle today in the first 80 minutes. Once again, it's another one of those reinforcements that bringing him in, it has been one of the more solid pickups for Atlanta United here and for all of MLS this season.
He's been fantastic, and whether it's dropping back in the back line, playing in the middle, showing off the ability to not get his pocket picked, which is so huge in really any system, but especially in this one where you're going to get forward in that attack. We talked about it before, and I know it's been talked ad nauseum, not just by us, but by a lot of people. You got to end these sequences with a shot where that ball's going to go out. You can't have that turnover in play in the middle third that triggers a counter. He doesn't have those very often. And it's just so nice to see someone who is that smooth on the ball, who still carries a bit of an edge with him. And I say a bit of an edge underselling what he does with the violence he is capable of. Not direct violent violence, but just the physicality in which he plays. It's really good. We've seen what he can do when he gets in that final third, but it takes the right kind of guy to be able to say, hey, I'm going to take this job that is, in a lot of eyes, kind of thankless because it's not going to result in goals. But you are an offensive lineman, man. You are going to be looked at when things go wrong. But if things are going well, and if you're doing your job, probably not going to talk about you a lot.
Yeah, he's one of those guys where, to throw some Serial names around, he's a guy who you expect to be Gattuso, which is like this Rottweiler in the back. And instead you get this hybrid player who can distribute like a true regista, and yet still is very clean in defense. And yes, he is supposed to drop back. That you're not going to change up what he does, which is drop down into the center. That's part of his role. But you do want to capitalize because he is putting out so much effort whenever he, is spinning guys in the back, keeping that possession, then distributing out. You really want to maximize those moments because the guy is working his butt off in the back. So he is another guy who, when you see that deal done, you're like, my God, like what kind of steal did we get in this guy? And so, again, dollar signs, man. It's he's a person who, if you put the right team around him, he can help you get some silverware, and then later on can add some cash to the piggy bank. So I love what I'm seeing out of Sosa. To me, he's the steal of the offseason in my mind. So, looking forward, but we got to maximize the any service from him. We have to maximize because there was a tremendous amount of physical capital involved in that distribution.
All right, we're officially at the halfway point, and I want to go to Twitter, and because toward the end of the show, since we haven't had the chance to discuss it, I want to discuss the Inter Miami situation and the Friday news dump that happened there before we get out of here today. But let's just go ahead and play Pressure Luck format with Twitter. If there is a tweet that has come in from the listeners that any of you want to address, just go ahead and say stop and go ahead and address it. So I'm just going to start reading, and when you guys, if there's one that you guys want to go ahead and hit, just let me know. Ellen Reynolds, pretty much with the thought that we've had here over the first half of the show, the draw feels like a massive loss. Tofka comes in and says, well, I was really looking forward to saying best match of the year, WTF, 2 shrug shoulders emojis. Offense clicked, defense fell asleep, Nick, to the point that you were making earlier in the show. Jason Wright from the Jason Wright Agency mentions it was disappointing. Mr. Fantastic says the draws feels like a complete loss. Players got complacent instead of playing direct. So
I stop on that one.
Go for it, Nick.
All right. So it's not a team that necessarily plays direct. There are moments where there's direct passing, where it's vertical or the incisive diagonal passes that I talk about sometimes. But this is not a team that normally plays direct. They're not just a straight, north-south team. They are a team that through the positional play will use the wings to create the width and for play creation. There's, when I say fall asleep, I don't mean, again, that the effort was completely just died. What I mean is that passes that were normally pretty clean ended up being wide by about a half yard to a yard and a half. And then you started seeing, at this level where you may be able to get away with that in like a USL, you're not going to get away with it in MLS because the athletes are too good and the speed is there. And that's what triggers your counters. So I don't want to say, I have to say that we're not going to be direct all the time because Heinze uses the wings to create. And if the creation chance goes away, it evaporates very quickly, you're going to cycle. And so that means you're going to pass back and you're going to try to reorganize the attack and try to recreate gaps in the defense. So that's my 2 cents on that. So I understand where people are coming from when it comes to we want direct, but that's not necessarily what this team does, unless I'm misinterpreting what his point is.
Ropes comes in and says, Uggs sloppy defending. Nashville SC made quality subs that were made to get back in the game. Better movement in the attack, though. Turner Kirby with the point that we've been making in the first half of the show. The attack was much better today, but the defense that's been steadfast in open play let you down in the last 10. Shiva said it was a massive loss. We have to finish these games at home. This is where subs make a difference, and it did for Nashville and not for us. On a bright note, we ended Nashville's streak and scored 2 on them. Bartimus Prime, part of the network who deals with the national team conversation, says our 2 best performances this year haven't resulted in wins.
I'll stop on that one. Yeah, go ahead, Jarrett, if you want to take it.
Yeah, I mean, that's just part of it. I mean, you're not going to win every game where you play great. You're not going to lose every game where you play like trash. It is kind of morbidly funny that your 2 best performances haven't ended in wins, or at least what feels like your 2 best performances. And you've had kind of a pain-in-the-ass schedule, too, when you look at it. Like, you had to go play in New England. You had to go play in Miami. You had to go play in Orlando. I mean, your home game, Chicago was a home game that you felt good about.
You played in Seattle.
You had to go play in Seattle. I mean, you dealt with Montreal, and Montreal is a really weird animal. I don't know what to think of Montreal. I don't think they're great, but I think they're good enough to be a pain in the ass. And then, you had to host Nashville. It was really good. But, I mean, that's what's going to happen in MLS. I mean, because of the way the league is this year especially, you're never going to have an easy game. You certainly didn't get one today, and you're gonna have to find a way to finish these off. But I think it's in part of the idea of Nick talking about not having a bunch of older players. I mean, you've got young guys, and at points today, Atlanta had 3 teenagers on the field. I mean, that's tough. And with older guys, you might be trying to recapture something, but older guys have that experience. Teenagers got to keep that experience, and sometimes that experience on closing games out has to be learned the hard way.
Right. Seattle, very good. Seattle's a very, very good team. Nashville, very good team. So, yeah, you had your 2 best performances against 2 very good teams. I think that's something that, it sort of sucks because you really want something more than just a point. But I'm going to feel okay about the fact that we got those points from. And if I can inartfully say it, I would say that I'm perfectly good getting those points from Seattle and from Nashville, but I really want 3 points today, and I feel like you should have had them.
Edmund Gibson came in and said that Atlanta United did not adjust well to C.J. Sapong entering the game, and Nashville's shift. Basically, a 5-minute span caused this to be a draw that feels like a loss. Still lots of positives. Attacking movement was much better, and the runs off the ball were more frequent. Nathan Pugh came in.
Yeah, I'll jump on that.
Go for it.
Yeah, I don't be shocked, and please don't overreact when Atlanta has a game like this where they drop a 5-piece on somebody, because it's going to happen. You're going to catch somebody on the wrong day, and you're going to play like this, and Atlanta's going to drop a 5-piece on somebody because of the attacking talent they have, and the fact that, I mentioned during the match, I think they're not thinking as much in the attacking third. It looks like they're just playing. And I know that's like a really broad, boring thing to say that doesn't really mean crap, and it can mean everything and nothing. But it seems like they're just not thinking as much in a good way. Yeah, there's going to be a game where they just drop a bomb on somebody who just picked the wrong day to be in the same building with them.
Also on the board, Nathan Pugh came in and said, at least Orlando lost. Screw Orlando. That was one of the early games on Saturday in Major League Soccer. Tiki Taka at ATL UTD 24_7. So this is what everyone wanted, right? Exciting offensive play, even with a 2-goal lead. Right, Nick?
Yeah. I mean, that's the one thing we kept hearing. That I know that anytime someone was mad at us, because of, we were saying, hey guys, be patient. Hey guys, be patient. And we often heard a lot of, we were promised, high scoring games with a lot of risk.
And we'll get to that one next.
Yep. And that's what we got. We got we got a 4-goal game with, that unfortunately ended in the draw, but, it's just part of the process. The growth process is not just, score a bunch of points. It's also learning how to keep points off the board. That is a part of the growth process, and that's where we are right now. So the idea is to have more of those high-scoring games go in our favor than walking away with a point each or end up on the losing side of it. But at least I would say it was an exciting game, until about the 85th minute. But it was a very exciting game nonetheless.
And the last tweet on the board comes from Topka. Topka says he's half pleased and half pissed, only reversed this time. The offense looked good today, but come on now, dropping 2 goals in 5 minutes to draw is not part of any, quote, win 4-3 versus win 1-0, end quote, debate.
Okay. So the problem is that we don't get, we can ask for blue skies, but we can't, get the humidity. Then you can't complain about the humidity. You can't complain about anything else that goes with it. You can't complain about the fact that it's 95 degrees. We can have blue skies with, 80 degrees and low humidity and all that. Those days are precious when they come, and we enjoy them when we can. But you can't trying to have our cake and eat it too here. It's still early in the season, and I said it before. I'll say it again. I'm not worried about anything until like June. And yes, I know we're at the end of May,
but we're not even to the quarter pole yet.
Right. So I'm perfectly okay with where things are because it's a teachable moment now before an international break. The offense was clicking, which is what everybody wanted. I wanted it. You wanted it. We got it. And, in the locker room now, I'm sure that there are some people who are looking around and maybe saying, you know what, maybe I should have done this. Maybe I should have done that. And they're not going to repeat the mistakes next time. So it's okay for us to be mad. We're fans. We buy tickets. We show up to games. We watch on TV. We buy VPNs so that way we can get into certain sports sites and watch our favorite team play. We are passionate and we want things done a certain way. And that's fine. But it's not always going to work out in our favor, and we have to be disappointed. We're allowed to be disappointed, but understand that there's another game coming up, and when that game happens, hopefully those mistakes have been cleaned up. But there's a lot of promise still on this team. There's a lot of potential still on this team because Jarrett's right. One day this team's going to show up, and the other team's going to be like, oh, it's Atlanta. They're going to do this. They're going to do that. And Atlanta's going to say, okay, 5 goals in the back of the net. Have a great night. And it's going to be wonderful when it happens.
You've already seen the inverse of that, and that was in that first Philadelphia game in the first leg where you felt like you could have dropped 3 or 4 goals in the first half of that first leg, and you didn't. And then you got punished in the second half where things didn't go your way. You're going to have games like that. You're going to have games like where you drop a 5 spot on somebody and just punish the hell out of them. Like Atlanta will score 4 or 5 goals, and you'll think, Jesus, they had 2 goals left in them. How the hell did that happen? It's going to happen. It's just part of the way you play. You're creating chances. You're also going to give up chances because you're going to play a high line. But I understand the frustration. Go look at the second goal today that you give up. That second goal is a shot that gets deflected and lands next to Mukhtar, who's just kind of standing there. He's not being marked for one thing, so that is a problem. But it was just a deflected shot that just kind of lands at his feet. It's tough luck, but it happens. Yeah, that's when you address to make sure someone's marking him. But right. That shot takes a different deflection. We're having a different conversation.
That's right. Assignments, the missed assignments, those are going to be things that I guarantee you the manager addressed post-game. When a manager comes out in a post-game and says, what I have to say doesn't come to you guys, it stays in the locker room, you know that the team caught heat. So whatever heat we're giving them on social media, I guarantee you Gabriel Heinze gave it 50 times worse in the back room. If that's what he came out to say. Right, because normally what does he say? Oh, I'm very pleased with how the team played. I'm thrilled. We're going to – no. What I have to say to the team stays with the team. He gave them the heat. So the missed assignments, those can be cleaned up. I hate missed assignments. I hate them. As someone who loves defense, as a keeper, we can get Jessica Charman on. I guarantee you she'll say the same thing. As a keeper, when you are screaming that someone's wide open and you know that little tap-in can happen, and it happens, you're screaming, you're going nuts, the blood pressure's going through the roof, but it can be cleaned up. And I would rather have, if I have to take a mistake, I would rather that than massive systemic issues from the defensive side of the ball. Because there's not massive systemic issues here. It's a missed assignment here. It's a drop there. It's a close down. These are things that can be addressed in the film room pretty easily.
All right. Thanks to everybody who hopped in on Twitter after the match, and we got to address what was on everybody's mind after the 2-2 draw with Atlanta United and Nashville. Before we go, I wanted to get in the discussion about the Friday news dump from the league office with Inter Miami and the sanction/punishment that happened there and the lack of a points deduction, but that's just me. Who wants to go first on this one? As you both stare at each other.
I'll go. That's fine. Look, I wanted points. The $2.2 million in loss of allocation money, that's going to be very painful, especially over a 2-year period, because that's really where championships are won, not just in the DPs, as Miami had 5 DPs and they still couldn't get the job done, which to me is the most hilarious thing maybe in MLS history. But getting those players, those workhorses, those guys who are not necessarily DP caliber, or maybe it's a player you want to buy down. That allocation money's gone now to do that with. So you're going to see a massive gap start to develop between the top line talent and then your standard, for lack of a better term, MLS player who is a college draft pick or, a guy who you picked up on a free. So Miami's going to hurt from this, but I think that, and we said it, I said it on the DM thread that we have. If they do a Friday news dump, it's because no one's going to like how this turns out. It is a war crime that this team did not get docked points. When you mess with the roster and you put so much talent on the field, which you didn't get the best results, and I guess maybe that's one of the reasons they did not get points deducted, because they had such a crummy result with 5 DPs. But when
irrelevance, you made the playoffs, Nick.
Right? Correct.
Chicago should be mad.
Yeah, they should be. The
entire East should be mad, but that's just me.
It should have been. I'm fine with the $2.2 million. I'm fine with. I think Moss should have been fined more. I think you're telling a billionaire he's got to pay $250,000. Ha ha ha. Okay. I think McDonough being banned for a year. I think if the investigation proved that he had anything to do with that, the cooking the roster and cooking the books and under the table payments or agreements, yes, okay, wonderful. But I want. Don't tell me that Beckham had no knowledge of it. Don't tell me that the Mosses had no knowledge of it. Do what Major League Baseball did to George Steinbrenner when Steinbrenner was caught being a knucklehead, and that was they banned him. They banned him from having anything to do with the team. I want to say it was for like a season or 2 seasons, and that was like the best thing that ever happened to Brian Cashman. That's exactly what needs to happen here. The Moss brothers should have been banned from having anything to do with the team. You go away for a year, 2 years, and then you can come back and get back involved with things. David Beckham, a year away from the team. You can't do anything with it. No marketing, no nothing. And you should have had a points deduction, 15, 20-point deduction, guaranteed. You're not making the playoffs. Deal with it. And the money should have been kept the same. But you must have the points deduction, or don't tell me this league is about parity and equal play. Don't tell me that. Don't tell me that we have all these convoluted roster rules and then allow them to walk away with no points deduction. Because everybody knows you make the playoffs, you have a shot. Take away their shot.
Yeah, it's not great. I'm surprised as much as anything that there weren't points deducted, because it's just, man, you got in the last playoff spot, and the team, you have a Chicago team that gets screwed out of it, because that's how I felt when we thought it was just Blaise Matuidi was the issue. No, they had 5 DPs, and then they lied about like 3 other salaries and falsely reported them. That for me was like, okay, it was worse than I thought it was, and the punishment was less than I thought it would be for the first don't know how to phrase that properly. The offenses were greater than I expected, and the punishment was less than I expected for the original offenses, not for the greater offenses.
Right.
So
for the stuff that we knew, not the stuff that was discovered.
You have taken a crowbar to the back of their knee for the next 2 seasons, because that allocation money is a big deal. They're not going to be able to fill out that roster with enough depth going forward. But yeah, man, that's. I'm going to be real tempted to see how this plays out with other teams, because like that allocation money thing is a big deal. But at the same time, you're looking at it, you're like, is it worth? It wasn't worth it because they got waxed by Nashville in the first round, which is funny as hell that a team with 5 DPs barely snuck into the playoffs and just got absolutely wasted away by another team that was also an expansion team that was playing what everybody considered to be a boring style. They were overrated and the second fiddle.
But look at this. You're probably looking at both Higuain brothers walking away after the season. Matuidi is probably going to walk away at the end of the season. So you're talking about DP spots and high TAM player spots. They're going to be opening up anyway. So really, they're going to clear a ton of roster space very quickly. And to me, that's why the points deduction should have happened. And it was worse. The investigation proved that what was happening in Miami was worse than we thought it was. It's not even, like you said, we just thought it was the Matuidi deal, because everybody was like, wait, what? Matuidi's not a DP? Get out of here. The guy played on the French national team. There's no way in the world this guy's not a DP. We knew that was crooked. This is like SMU for MLS. This is like the pony excess.
Oh, God, please tell me they try and bend the rules again going forward. We go full SMU.
They have a payroll to meet, don't they?
They do.
They still have a payroll to meet.
Yes, they still have guys who are on the roster now who were found to be with undisclosed stipulations, and which I could only assume is under the table payments or some sort of wink, wink, nod, nod. You're going to be the new face of whatever product we have, Moss Brothers Incorporated. But it was worse than we thought it was, and to let them walk without any sort of points deduction, it's ridiculous. And if I guarantee you, had this been Orlando City, had it been Houston or Dallas or a team where, they're probably not really, one of those like sexy fun teams, right? That just gets the media wheels going. Like a Vancouver. There you go. Like a Vancouver, who God knows the Whitecaps have had so many systemic issues with that office that if anybody should have been hitting smackdown earlier, it was them. And you're telling me that you have people openly cheating and the league's not stepping in and taking control of the team for a season, 2 seasons? That to me, it's criminal. Don't tell me that there's a level playing field, that all these arcane rules, all these budget restrictions, all these budget caps are so everyone has a shot. And then you find someone who's openly breaking the rules, and then it's found to be worse. And there's no points deduction. No, $2.2 million loss of allocation fund. No, strip them of their DP spots, remove the allocation money, ban the Moss brothers and Beckham along with McDonough for at least a season minimum, and let the league take control of the team for a year. The league gets to run it, right? That doesn't mean they run it into the ground, but you don't get to be a part of it. So you still have to pay the bills, but you don't get to say where that money goes and how it's being spent. There's nothing a rich person hates more than someone else telling them where and how to spend their money, and they have no control over it. So to me, that would be a fantastic punishment if you're not going to do the points, because it's just absurd to me. It's SMU for MLS, and they're essentially getting a slap on the wrist.
So basically, Jarrett, it sounds like Nick wants some kind of, not receivership, but you're looking at someone who gets to be a front office proxy is what Nick would want to operate to make sure that the books are as honest as they need to be in this 2-year period where you still have a payroll to meet and you still have that $2.2 missing from your AM over the next 2 years? Nick is looking
I want
for some
show
kind of
cause.
receivership.
I want stewardship. I want league stewardship, which is it would be massive league oversight, and any player contract that gets negotiated essentially has a show cause attached to it, which you get full 100% transparency on the deal. And if there's a violation, the contract's voided immediately.
Jarrett, last words are yours.
We'll see what happens if something happens again. Standard's been set by the league, so we'll see what happens if anybody else tries stuff.
And that was why I wanted to bring in the topic before we headed to the end of the show. Thank you to everyone who joined in on Twitter. Hopefully we've answered your questions and got your concerns addressed over the 2-2 draw with Atlanta United and Nashville. We hadn't had the chance to talk about what happened in Miami, so that's why I figured we would tack that to the end of the show. So that is another go-round of salty takeaways and bitter ends, which definitely happened if you're an Atlanta United fan at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in front of just under 41,000 on Saturday as we head toward the international break. Remember, Atlanta United 2, Birmingham Legion is at the Fraction Sunday afternoon, 3:30. You can catch that on ESPN+. Jason Longshore and myself will be there for that. We'll keep an eye on everything with the Twos. We'll have a Twos review after that show, and we'll let you hear what happened there as Atlanta United gets the work in the USL Championship on the weekend at Fifth Third Bank Stadium. So for Nick, for Jarrett,
Nick, send us out with some good food advice, please.
Yeah, there you
Let's
go.
make this a thing.
Some good food advice, Nick, to send us home.
A cooking tip of something.
If you are making any sort of spaghetti, any sort of sauce, just, again, do not bring the sauce to the pasta. Bring the pasta to the sauce. Just have a pan to the side with some sauce in it. You put your pasta in there. You work it around. You're going to let the pasta absorb the sauce. You're going to have more flavorful pasta. And when you cook your pasta, cook it in chicken stock. Chicken stock. That's the key. So mucho. There you go. Yeah, I'm telling you, man. Chicken stock's the key. That's what all the Michelin starred Italian restaurants do.
And that's what we try to do here every week is bring the pasta to the sauce. So, Nick, send us home.
Mucha platillo.